muốn kể của nó là cái style.
Okay. Okay. Welcome back. Another exciting edition of the lecture. Today, we'll be talking about right mindfulness. So we're talking about the Eightfold Path, pretty much the path that the Buddha says, oh, this is what you gotta take if you wanna ultimately reach the end of suffering, etc., right? And it gets in the bottom. And so we've been talking for the past couple of weeks about everything that you guys have to do that's right? So we talked about like right thinking, right view, right speech, right diligence, right livelihood. And today we'll be talking about right mindfulness. Now, this word mindfulness, it's very interesting. The question is, and I have like just a fascinating question which I've never really thought about, but like you guys should think about this. Here it is. Why is it that in the Buddhist tradition we meditate so much? Think about it. The first thing that you think about when it comes to Buddhism is like, oh, a whole bunch of monks sitting in a temple and meditating. But why meditation to begin with, right? Think about that question. Because when I was a kid and I showed up to temple, I never understood why people just sat there in silence just to meditate. And it's a big deal, right? A lot of monks do it, like pretty much in any tradition, whether you're like Vietnamese or from Thailand or Chinese or etc. All these different types of Buddhists or Tibetan Buddhists. We're different types of Buddhists, but we're all the same at the same time, right? We're all meditating. So the question is, why? Why meditate? And so the word right mindfulness, like why does the Buddha emphasize mindfulness, right? And so that's the point of today's discussion. What is it? What is mindfulness? And so to begin, it's basically the energy, right, that brings us to the present moment. It's only when we are actually mindful that we can have the right view, the right speech, etc. So, what is mindfulness / meditation? Well, it's really about this one key word. It's attention, right? It's where do you place your attention? Because the second, like, if you guys are getting like, let's just say a lecture right now, and you don't pay attention to the words or the thoughts or basically the feelings coming from the lecture, then you guys are just simply not mindful, right? So mindful is just the idea of attention. And it's a very big misconception, especially when you're meditating, that your brain is turned off, when it's quite the opposite, right? When you meditate, you learn how to develop this skill of attention. And the more that you meditate, the more that you hone your ability to pay attention to something as long as possible, right? And so the Sanskrit word for mindfulness means to remember, right? And so the idea of mindfulness to begin with is to remember, where are you, like right now, at this very moment. Mindfulness is always about coming here to the present moment. And it sounds like an interesting word, like the present moment. What is that? And I'm trying to like thinking out loud. It's like, why is there always an emphasis on the present moment? But let's just continue this discussion, okay? There's like a couple of miracles, as they call it, like miracles of mindfulness. Like, why be mindful to begin with? Why practice meditation, right? And let's practice why. It says that the present moment allows you to be present and touch life deeply. That's like the first idea behind mindfulness. What's that talking about? If you look outside, like right now, the sky is gray, right? But sometimes the sky is blue. But to what extent do you actually feel and know and actually touch this idea that the sky out there is gray right now? Or, let's just look at the carpet. The carpet is red, right? It's a deep red. To what extent can you feel and touch that idea that the carpet is red, right? You actually, it's in your view, but you really don't know it for sure until you actually pay attention to it and observe it deeply. And this is like one of the ideas of like mindfulness, right? It's like it takes you here and you're allowed to experience things as they are. For example, let's just say looking at the flower. Can you like look at this flower and actually see everything about it? And it's not just it's not in the background anymore. Like now that I've brought like your attention to like the flowers that you see over there or this flower over here, can you actually feel and experience what you see here, which is the flower, okay? So again, that's the first miracle of mindfulness. It makes you aware of things that you've never been aware of before, okay? So there's so many things in this room that you could like fixate your attention on that you probably like never noticed before. Like for example, not you've noticed it, but it's always been in the background. For example, like these two vases, right? With like interesting, like a lot of different colors. Like all of a sudden your attention is, like this room itself is very, very colorful room. Did you guys ever like think about that? Like, oh, we're in this room. And like you begin to feel like, oh, what's the temperature in this room? Is it hot? Is it cold? Notice how like your attention, the more that you think about like the individual details about what you see, feel, and hear, you become more present. You're here. You're in the now, right? You're not elsewhere. You're not thinking about something else. Okay? And it's interesting. The question is why? Why try to be present or try to be as present as possible? Well, there's this apparently Vietnamese poem talking about this story. It's a very interesting story, right? So you have these two people. There's this person who's asleep. He has his head down on his books, right? And his wife comes home from a day of work or whatever, and so the husband is like studying. He has his head down in the books, and he hears his wife like opening the door. She opens the door, she comes in, and his head's on the pile of books, and he like picks up his head and he says, "Are you really there, or am I dreaming?" And it's really interesting. To some extent, if I ask you like, do you know that you are dreaming, or do you know that you're alive and here? I wondered, like, that's a really interesting question. Or, the point of that story is this, right? If we don't live deeply in the moments, every single moment of our life is going to be like a dream. It's like, not exactly, you don't see it in the fullest of colors, and our memories of it become blurry and more blurry as like time goes on, right? The idea of being like practicing right mindfulness is that like you guys have a chance to see each other deeply. Does that make sense? It's like you no longer are in like a dream space. You become aware. You pay attention to things about each other, etc., etc. Okay. So that's a second miracle of mindfulness. It's like not only do things come up in your attention, but you, the person, become attentive. Like, all of a sudden, you become more awake and alive. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like, sometimes, the weeks, the days, like, if I ask you, what did you do last Tuesday? Think back. See if you can recall anything. Did you do anything significant last Tuesday? Who knows? Did you do anything significant last week? Maybe 1 or 2 events pop up. But all the days become to blur together. All the weeks become to blur, all the months become to blur, and all the years become to blur. And ultimately, when you think about it, if you don't live a life where you are mindful, everything becomes a blur. You're living basically a dream. You're not very attentive, you're not very awake, right? And this is a huge idea of Buddhism. Like that, this is like why we meditate to some extent. Like we're meditating so that we can learn how to become more attentive and we can like pay attention to things, okay? So that's number 2. Number 3, why else should we be mindful? Why else should we practice? And this is obviously like one of the Eightfold Path. Like why practice mindfulness to begin with? Well, it's because you can actually help relieve other people's suffering. Just by being present for them. It sounds like a really weird thing, but it's also funny because I read in the New York Times article once, it's like, what do you do when somebody that you know, let's just say a friend or a family member, has somebody, has just recently lost somebody, right? Like for example, there was a death in the family, or somebody in your friend a friend of yours had a death in the family. What is it that you can possibly do? And it's like weird because a lot of people say like, oh, my condolences, right? And that's like the formal thing that you say, like, oh, like let's just use an example of a family pet, right? My family pet just died, like my dog just died. Most Americans, since we're in English, we use the same language. We say like, oh, my condolences. You're expressing like your sympathy for these people. But in this New York Times article, the number one advice that they gave about what you can do is just being present. You don't have to actually say anything to these people, right? You know that they're suffering. You know that they're in a state of suffering. But you can help alleviate that state of suffering just by simply being there, right? And saying, hey, I can't possibly understand what you're going through, but I'm here, and I'm here to listen to you, right? And that's just one reason why people, to some extent, practice like right mindfulness, right? It's to alleviate suffering, not just of your close friends and family, but for people across the world. The next miracle of mindfulness, of why do we practice mindfulness, is that it allows you to get to know the person that you're with. Any close friends, family member, or people in the community, have you ever stopped to ask them, who are you? Now think about it. Let's just think about a close family member of yours. Family, like brother, sister, mom, father. Have you ever just looked at them and asked them, who are you? That's a really interesting question. It's very simple. Like, who are you? But it makes you think. It makes you aware of their presence. And it makes you question, do you really know your own brother, your own sister, your own mom, or your own family? And if not, it's a great simple question because it kind of forces you to pay attention, A, and B, actually get to know the people around you. It's not just close family members. Have you ever stopped and you see your friend, you're talking with your friend. Most of the time, you show up to school, you're like, hey, so-and-so, that's my friend, great. But have you ever just sat there and be like, And just look at your friend and be like, or think about your best friend, whoever your best friend is. Ask them and look at them and be like, who are you? You know? See if you can get to know them on that deeper level. That's like how like you would, that's one of the reasons why like practicing mindfulness, ultimately the goal is it gets you closer to people. And so that leads into like another reason why like we practice right mindfulness. It allows you to understand people, right? So one of the tenets of Buddhism is compassion. And compassion basically it's like it's a form of love, except it's almost like a universal type of love, right? It's like unconditional. And when you are compassionate, well, you're not compassionate. You cannot be compassionate for other people if you don't understand them, right? But when you practice right mindfulness, the idea is that you begin to get a deeper understanding of things that you don't see before. And the more that you are mindful, the more that you're able to sit and listen deeply, you begin to understand more, right? And the more that you understand something, especially people, the more that you're able to express like more, develop more compassion. So that's what mindfulness does, right? It builds your understanding. It builds your ability to pay attention. It also builds, to some extent, your wisdom. And so the problem with like teaching Buddhism, and I mean like, is that sometimes it gets like really complicated really quickly, and then your attention like fades away, right? So when I talk about things like building wisdom and building compassion, I wonder to what extent it actually connects with you. But this is the topic, so it's funny because like the two pillars of Buddhism, or not, there's so many pillars, but the one that I see in the poster is on the one hand you have wisdom, and on the other hand you have compassion. And it's funny because like when you are mindful and when you like practice meditation, it builds both of those things within you, right? The idea of wisdom, it's part and parcel of like why we meditate. When you meditate, you sit there by yourself and you are thinking deeply by yourself. And when you begin to look deeply at yourself, like remember that question of me telling you to ask your friends or your family or anybody close to you, who are you? Have you ever done that towards yourself? Have you ever just sat there still and asked you, whatever your name is, it's like, who are you as a person? That type of like deep exploration is the type of exploration that generates wisdom. Because a lot of people don't know who they are, right? And they're actually very, very, to some extent, uncomfortable with who they are. That's A. And B, they're afraid to sit there in silence and just meditate and focus on themselves, right? What are all the good things about you? What are all the bad things about you? Have you guys ever explored that? It's worth the exploration, okay? Finally, the last thing about why we meditate, right? And this is probably like the reason why a lot of like within the Buddhist tradition we all meditate. The idea is that we get to transform our own suffering and transform the suffering in the world. The more mindful you are, the less suffering you have. It's really, really fascinating. And ultimately, what's the point of the Eightfold Path, right? This entire lecture, if you guys didn't know, is talking about the Eightfold Path. And right mindfulness is one of the Eightfold Path. And the entire point of walking down this path is for you guys to alleviate suffering. So mindfulness is at the top, because the more that you are able to become mindful, the less suffering you'll experience, right? They give you one example. I don't know if you guys can relate to it at all, but it's talking about the example that they give in this book I'm reading is like smoking cigarettes. Like, I'm sure none of you guys smoke cigarettes, but you can probably understand. And I actually have a coworker who smokes cigarette, and it's a really, well, she doesn't smoke cigarettes, she vapes now, but it's still very, very bad habit, right? And to the extent where she says at night she'll wake up shivering because she needs to be smoking something. And during the school day, she has to like find time or breaks in the school day to go out and start smoking a cigarette. Now, it's weird because and I don't know if you guys are able to relate or understand this idea of cigarettes to begin with, but it's basically a drug, right? Nicotine, and it's highly addictive. And it's addictive because it gives you pleasure in the moment. But the second you go out without like cigarettes for like weeks, or for a couple of hours, it becomes painful. So why? And then I'm going to connect this back. What the person who's addicted to cigarettes, they have this something called habit energy, right? They're constantly, it's like part of their habit to like want to just smoke the cigarettes. And while it seems pleasurable in the moment, it's actually causing suffering. Your body is addicted to something. It's addicted to this habit, and it's constantly suffering. So the way to break that is through mindfulness, because if you practice mindfulness, your mental concentration is going to override your habit energy, right? So to some extent, this is like why, and then if you're able to break your habit energy, you alleviate your suffering, right? And my coworker, whether she knows it or not, she's basically suffering from a very bad habit right now. All right, so that's everything that is to why we should do like mindfulness. I haven't summarized this up very well, but I should. And there's very few like little time left, so there's like 5 minutes. So I'll just talk about like what you should be mindful about, right? There's like the what, there's the why behind it. Like, here's all the benefits. You become alive, basically. You're no longer in a dream-like state. All of a sudden, the second you become present to the moment, you realize, oh my gosh, I'm alive. And everything isn't a blur anymore. There's no dreams. Like, that's like the real idea. But then, that's the why. How do you become present? How do you practice right mindfulness, which is the path that the Buddha laid out? Well, he says you can focus on 3 things: your body, your feelings, and your thoughts. Okay? And we'll just very quickly go through this. Mindfulness of the body. According to the text, right? Here's how you practice this. First, you become aware of your body to begin with. I know, it sounds crazy. It's a simple statement. But did you guys know that you have a body? That's weird, right? It sounds weird. But how often throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, or throughout the year, do you guys actually say, I have a body? Like, what? Do you recognize that you have a body? Do you recognize how you're sitting at this very moment? Some of you guys are sitting cross-legged. Some of you guys have your legs up. Some of you guys have your legs down. Do you guys, the more that you bring attention to your body, the more you can actually feel, oh my gosh, I have a body. Most of the time, you guys are so distracted with everything else that you don't even realize, you're not even mindful. You don't practice mindfulness of the body. You don't focus on it, right? So like that's how you begin to become mindful. Understand, oh my gosh, I have a body. Like working parts, right? Legs that work to some extent, it's healthy. whatever the status of your body is, you have a body. And it's separate from reality. It's separate from the things that you're sitting on. Your body is your own thing. So that's something interesting that you guys just want to be mindful of. But the second thing is, and this is like what you do during mindfulness training or during meditation, right? It's a thing that you can do. Because I know like at 12:45 to 1 o'clock, the monk here does like a meditation session for 15 minutes, right? And most of the time, like the second we start meditating, we're like lost in thought. So one of the recommendations is for you to focus on your body, right? You want to do something called like a body scan. You start from the top of your head. I don't know if you can feel it now, but you have hair, and then you have eyebrows, right? And then you have a nose, and you have eyes, and you have ears, and you have a mouth, and you have a chin, and then the forehead and the temple. You do a body scan, you start to feel every individual part of your body, right? And you go from the top to the bottom. You have the neck, you have shoulders, you have arms, you have elbows, you have your wrists, your hands. Start to wiggle little parts of your body. Like you're starting from the top all the way to the bottom, right? Your chest, your stomach, your waist. All of a sudden you become aware, oh man, all these parts of your body that you know you have, but you really aren't mindful of them. Like start paying attention to it, right? And finally, well, I'll just leave it at that. And then I'll just like continue this, but I'll like wrap it up for next week or something. But yes, without right mindfulness, none of the parts of the Eightfold Path, it's like the glue that unites everything in the Eightfold Path, right? So if you want like the right view, the right thinking, the right livelihood, the right diligence, etc., you need to start with having like the right mindfulness first. You have to have a clear mind. You need to be attentive. You need to be present. And then this is like the pathway basically to alleviate suffering. Okay? And that is the lecture for today. Thank you.